welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, you're highly welcome. My name is Zara. I am a final year medical student studying University of Nigeria, West Africa, and in this video I'm going to be telling you guys the resources that I used as a 5th year medical student. If you're interested in this video, keep watching. Going to divide these resources into 3 with one secret ingredient. The first one is the textbooks that I use as a 5th year medical student. In 5th year of medical school, we take obstetrics and gynecology and pediatrics. For obstetrics and gynecology, I used these books. This book is called the Bible of Obstetrics and Gynecology. There were other recommended books. I'm a Nigerian medical student and we have some tropical books that we use here. One of them is Agbola. I think the actual title of the book is Textbook of Obstetrics and Gynecology for Medical Students. Yes, and the author's name is Agbola. I'm going to insert a picture of it somewhere here so you guys can see. So I had that textbook, but I had it in soft copy. What I usually do is that for every course I have to take in medical school, I get a physical copy of a textbook and get soft copy of any other textbook that was recommended or any other textbook I can lay my hands on. So for obstetrics and gynecology, the textbook I chose to buy were these. I like textbook. I'm a textbook person. If you're not a textbook person, that is fine. So for pediatrics, I used this book. We call it Azubike on Kangineme. So if you hear in Nigerian medical students say, "Oh, can you borrow me your Azubike or can you borrow me your Nkangineme?" This is the book that they are talking about. Pediatrics and Child Health in the Tropics. This is the book that they are talking about. This is a tropical book. It's a local book. When I mean local, I mean it was produced in Nigeria by Nigerians. I will not say it's for Nigerians only, because I think it might be sold internationally. I don't know, but yeah, I am not a fan of buying tropical books. What do I mean? I'm not a fan of buying local books. I prefer using international books like this one. I don't mind having these tropical books as soft copies, but I prefer buying international books just because of the future. I got this book because this was like the highly recommended book for us to use. That is why I got this book. And also it made sense to buy this book because majority of the authors in this book, or most of the authors in this book, are my lecturers. So it just made a whole lot of sense to get the book, because I mean, why would my lecturer's topic be here and I am reading an international book? I must first pass my exams before I plan on writing any international exams, if you understand what I mean. So I read this book. This book is huge. I'm not even going to lie, it's huge. But yeah, I read this book. The things I read from this book, I read the neurology aspect, especially seizures. I read seizures from this book because the author of Seizure is a consultant, a professor in my school. So I read the seizure aspect of this book, and I was also in neurology during my senior pediatric posting. So I read that. I also read some cardiac diseases in this book, and yeah, most of that cardiac respiratory diseases from this book, and also neurotopics from this book. It's actually a really interesting book. At first I hated it because it was just in black and white. It was just in black and white, but I had to start using, as you can see, I tried to use highlighters to kind of make it interesting. Yeah, another textbook that I made use of, or it's not really a textbook more, it's more like a question bank, was, I think it's called Cases Pediatrics, Cases Obstetrics and Gynecology. I also find it and leave the picture here so you guys can see what I am talking about. So basically there you get clinical scenarios and clinical cases where you try to hazard a diagnosis and treatment options and things like that, because your 5th year, which is where you take your 4th mbbs exam, is the first clinical exam, that you take as a medical student. That's where you get really exposed into the clinical world, like history taking, examinations, OSCE, those kind of things. I also used some summary books for obstetrics and gynecology, especially when my exams drew closer. If you're not new to this channel and you know me, you know that I am an absolute mess when exam starts. So I try as much as I can to prepare before the exam starts, so that during the exam I'm just reading summaries. Yeah. So I had 2 books for obstetrics and gynecology and 2 books for pediatric. I had Rule of Thumb, obstetrics and gynecology. This is a CMDA book. Yeah, it's a CMDA production of the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital. I also had the Rule of Thumb pediatrics. Woo, sorry about that. I also had the Rule of Thumb pediatrics. It's also a publication of the CMDA chapter in the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital. It was a really good book. Another book I used for obstetrics is Adeleke. We call this Adeleke. It's the Principles of Obstetrics and Gynecology. This is an old edition. There's a newer one, but this one was given to me. Yeah, this one was given to me. These ones I got, but this one was given to me. So this is an older edition. And that summary book I used in pediatrics was Punchline. This is a production of Madonna University medical students, class of 2009. I used this book a lot. I was very surprised when I realized that it was almost the same thing as what you find in my lecture materials and my lecture slides. I was shook because at first, let me tell you the truth, at first I did not really rate this book until exams drew near. Then I started rating this book. And at the back you can get possible diagnosis for some symptoms, some signs and symptoms, possible diagnoses. You can also get some grading of murmurs, grading of finger clubbing, grading of edema, and also some OSCE cases, or rather OSCE. I'll say this is OSCE, not OSCE, because they are picture slides. So another book I use, this is a clinical book now, is this book. We call it OBDK. Most of our textbooks, we call them by the author's name. Okay, so we call it OBDK. So this is actually an older edition. There's a newer one. I use this book because this book has like if you know Fallache and Hutchinson, then that's exactly how this book is. Basically, this is like a clinical book. It has history taking, different examinations of the different systems. But if you have Fallache or if you have Hutchinson, I would say yeah, it also would work for you instead of using this book if you don't want. This book is actually a like local book. When I mean local, I mean the author of this book is a professor in my school. That's what I mean. It's very, very local. It's not just a Nigerian book. It's a book that is close to home. Then another book I used was this book. See, I have a lot of books for pediatrics because only the, how do they say that now? Only the violence take it by force. You understand? So this book, we call it the pediatric emergency. So here basically like summarizes how you handle possible pediatric emergencies like acute exacerbation of asthma, malaria, severe malaria, what again, hypoglycemia, different things. Yeah, and most of the authors are also in my school. Second resource I used as a fifth year medical student were YouTube videos. Oh my god, I don't know if people underestimate the power of YouTube videos. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, I saved a lot of YouTube videos, that the moment I was deleting it immediately after my exam, I felt so happy that I had a lot of space on my phone. You guys don't even understand. So there are some channels that I used for obstetrics and gynecology. There were some channels that I used for pediatrics. For obstetrics and gynecology, I didn't watch a lot of videos on obstetrics and gynecology. I don't know why, but I didn't just watch a lot of videos. But the channel that I watched was Amando Hassan Dongan's obstetrics and gynecology playlist. I'm going to try as much as possible to leave links to any of the things I'm saying. If it's links to get the soft copy materials, I'll try and leave them in the description box, or links to the YouTube channel, I'll leave them in the description box so you guys can have easier access to it. I watched Amando Hassan Dongan's obstetrics and gynecology playlist. I also watched Lecturio's obstetrics and gynecology videos, some of them sometimes. I didn't watch a lot of obstetrics and gynecology videos like I said, but anytime I needed clarification or videos, I just went to these channels. The 4th MB exam is your first clinical exam ever in the College of Medicine, so you need to be like with your examinations and everything. So the reasons why I watched a lot of videos in pediatrics. For obstetrics and gynecology, we didn't really need a lot of history taking, clerking and all that, but pediatrics, it was like very compulsory. It was like the game changer, something that can change your entire face. Is long case. In a separate video, I'm going to talk about how 4th MBBS works. If you guys would like to see that video, just leave it in the comment section, which means that if you have not subscribed at this point, I don't know what you're waiting for. Subscribe so you can get more quality content like this if you're interested in videos like this. For pediatrics, I watch videos mainly for examinations. One of the channels that I watched was Geeky Medics. I've spoken about Geeky Medics before when I talked about YouTube channels that you can watch for medical related videos. I'm going to leave that video linked somewhere up here and also in the description box, so you guys can check that out right after this video. So I use Geeky Medics to learn examinations. After reading them, you want to see them, you know, live and direct, someone doing it. So especially my neuro examinations, I watched a lot of Geeky Medics. Another channel that I watched was Farsight channel. That's the name of the channel. I'm going to leave it linked in the description box. But this channel basically, I don't know if you know of the textbook, the Macleod Clinical Examination textbook. Yeah, so the channel basically does a video representation of that textbook. So whenever you're searching for a video and search for Macleod examination of the neurological system, you see that channel pop up. Okay, so that channel uses the Macleod Clinical Examination textbook to show how to, or demonstrate how to do the examinations. Most of these videos actually do examinations on adults, but it's almost the same thing as on a child. Checking for apex beats in an adult is the same thing as checking for apex beats in a child. So all I had to do was modify it to doing it on a child, and also practiced doing it on a child. Another channel that I watched was NITMed Tutorials. NITMed Tutorials is a Nigerian based YouTube channel that basically does shows how to do all the examination, from general examination to respiratory examination, and they use Nigerian, so basically you can relate. Another channel that I used for pediatrics was Lecturio. So with Lecturio, I used channel to learn about certain topics like seizures, respiratory disorders, etc. So when I want to learn more about certain topics, I use Lecturio. Another channel that I use is Med School. I use Med School to know how certain things sound. So in Med School, you can see things like respiratory sounds, heart sounds, how to read ECG, things like that. So I watched the channel to differentiate vesicular breath sounds from bronchial breath sounds, to know how wheezing sounds, rhonchi, crepitations, etc. And also to know how the first and second heart sounds should sound, you know, and if there are murmurs and things like that. So that's what I use Med School for. So I listen to it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So whenever I now listen to an actual chest, I can now say, okay, I think this sounds like crepitations. Ma, what do you think? Is it crepitations? Is it not crepitations? So I use that to differentiate between breath sounds and heart sounds and different heart sounds and things like that. So these are the YouTube channels that I watched and that were helpful to me for my 4th MBBS exam in my 5th year of medical school. The third resource that I used were apps and websites. The website that I use is Google. Yes, Google was my best friend during this period. As I said before, and I'm saying again, your fourth MB exam or your 5th year of medical school is your first clinical exam that you will ever write in the College of Medicine. Okay, it's your introduction to clinical exams. So there are a lot of medical jargons, okay, that I may not understand, so I googled a lot. Not only did I Google, I saved a lot of images from Google. So if I am googling an instrument in O&G, for example, if I want to know how a tenaculum looks like or a sponge holding forceps looks like, I just Google it and save it on my phone and just go through the images close to my exam. Say, okay, yeah, this is a tenaculum. I also use slideshare.net. So anytime I'm googling something, I usually focus on slideshare.net, especially if it's about a whole topic. For example, if I want to know more about pneumonia, I go to slideshare.net pneumonia and I just see a lot of videos. And also for like OSPI slides and like OSPI slides, I check slideshare.net OSPI. The apps that I use were: 1, Medscape. Nobody can tell me nothing. Medscape is a king when it comes to this medical career or medical journey. Let me tell you guys something. Come closer. Shh, don't tell anybody. I have to reduce my voice. I was reading something. Can I remember the topic now? Yes, hypertension in children. And I was trying to get the definition of something, a range or something like that in this topic I was reading. And I went to search Medscape, pediatric hypertension or hypertension. I don't know if it's pediatric hypertension I put or the actual topic. But then I got the material or the resource. I opened it. And when I got to the pathophysiology of how hypertension, it was exactly the same thing. It was exactly the same thing. I was like, at that point, nobody could tell me nothing that Medscape is not an important resource in this medical journey. Because my lecture material is Medscape. You can't tell me that. Since then, Medscape has been a holy grail for me. As I said before, medical school 4th MB exam in Nigeria is your first clinical exam. So we do a lot of OSPI and OSCE. OSPI is objectively structured pictorial exam. OSCE is objectively structured clinical exam. So for OSPI, you're shown different pictures and you're meant to answer certain questions on them. So I use Medscape a lot to read about a particular disease. For example, if I see picture of let me say chickenpox, I will go on Medscape and find out more information on chickenpox. And when practicing, I realized that a lot of in between the lines are picked and used as questions in this OSPI. I was not the one that gave you guys this information. Medscape really helped me a lot as a 5th year medical student. If I don't know anything and it's not on Medscape, I am not meant to know it. Okay, that did not come out right, but you understand what I mean. Most of the things that you're looking for, you find it on Medscape. And alternatively, another application that I used was Wikimed. I know that all these applications, you can get them as a website, but I just preferred having it as an application on my phone, so I can just tap and search directly where I want to search. So another alternative that I used was Wikimed. Oh my god, Wikimed is such an amazing app, and maybe sometimes it's so underrated, I don't know, but I use Wikimed a lot. Unlike Medscape, Wikimed is very like straight to the point. I'm telling you this, one page. Wikimed is one page, like of a read, it's just one page. You just need to read one page. But with Medscape, you need to do the overview, you need to do the signs and clinical features, not signs and symptoms, rather clinical features. You need to do the diagnosis, you need to do the treatment, you need to do the summary. It's a lot. Medscape can be a lot, like a lot of things to just take in, especially when you just want straight to the point. So I use Wikimed for my straight to the point things. I don't have time to stress anybody, and nobody should stress me. So I used Wikimed a lot instead of using Medscape sometimes. But yeah, Medscape and Wikimed, these two applications, we were like 5 and It's either on Medscape or Wikimed. If it's not on Medscape, it's on Wikimed. If it's not on Wikimed, it's on Medscape. One of them. Another application that I used was MDEX. MDEX is a Nigerian application, I think. Yes, it's a Nigerian application. Basically, it is a drug bank. It is a drug library. MDEX is an application of drugs. So if you're looking for any drug at all, open MDEX and you will find it. Even if it's the generic, not the generic, the, what's it called, company name that you have, search for it, you will find your read like the generic name. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So for example, I'm in clinic and I hear Epilim. I'm like, what's Epilim? What's Epilim? What's Epilim? I search on MDEX and I see Epilim is the same as sodium valproate. I'm like, okay. And with the MDEX application, you get the pharmacokinetics, dynamics, vigilance, pharmacovigilance. You get the side effects, adverse effects, contraindications, indication, mode of action, route of administration, anything you want concerning this drug. You get it on MDEX. The dosage, you get it on MDEX. So I use MDEX a lot because you're in clinic and you're hearing, oh, okay, prescribe Epilim for this person, prescribe Gosarolin for this person. You're like, where are these drugs flying from? Where are all these drugs flying from? What are these drugs? And most times you may not be so opportune to ask immediately because the patient is there, consultants need to attend to the patient, then you're allowed to ask questions. So you can just quickly type on your MDEX application, Gosarolin, Epilim, and it gives you the answer, it gives you the generic and gives you all the information you need about the drug. It's a really great app actually, and I look forward to using it more as a final year medical student. Another application that I used is ANKI. I have talked about ANKI before. If you don't know what ANKI is about, I've done a video of ANKI before. I'll leave it somewhere here or somewhere in the description box so you guys can check that out. ANKI is basically like a question bank app. I use ANKI to create my own personal question bank whenever I am reading a specific topic in a specific course. Alternatively to making your own cards or your own question bank, you can decide to download shared deck from the internet. But the problem with this now is that you might be downloading a deck from a different country. I know medicine is universal, but there are certain variation country to country. For example, epidemiology of a certain disease, the treatment options of certain diseases, and things like that. So if you're using if you're a Nigerian and you're using shared deck from the United States, it may vary, or shared deck from India, it may vary. Like, it may not be exactly as what is in your lecture slides or lecture materials. Not to say that these things are wrong, but compared to your lecture slide, it would be better to just read your lecture slide and just forget about ANKI if you don't have the energy to create your own question banks as you read. Another application that I used was Flora. Flora is a productivity app that can be found on the iOS App Store and the Google Play Store, so you can get it on your iPhone and your Android phone. Flora, as I said, is a productivity app, and I use Flora as my Pomodoro timer whenever I really need to get productive. If I feel like I am getting distracted a lot and I'm pressing my phone a lot, I use Flora. So basically, Flora is just like the Forest app, but it is free on the iOS. The Forest app is not free on iOS, it's free on Android, but Flora is free on iOS. So I use Flora to be productive as my Pomodoro timer. Basically, I grow a tree for the amount of time that I want to study. For example, if I'm studying for 15 minutes and I'm taking a break for 10 minutes, my tree grows in 50 minutes. And I usually use the 50 minutes to 10 minutes ratio, not the 25 to 5 minutes ratio that most people do, because I feel like once I get into the zone of studying, I need to continue studying. If I come back again, getting into that zone of studying might take a while. So I prefer to use the 50-10 ratio. Be productive for 15 minutes, take rest for 10 minutes, making a total of 60 minutes. That's an hour. Okay, so that is the app that I use. Finally, the last but definitely not the least is the secret that I told you about. It is simply attending your clinical postings. Oh my god, this cannot be overemphasized. I said it before, I'm saying it again. This may not be the last time that I will say it. Fourth mbbs exam is your first clinical exam in medical school as a Nigerian medical student. So if you do not attend your clinical postings, at least 80 to 90 percent, strive to get 80 to 90% attendance in your clinical posting. Not just the attendance, but applying yourself 100%. There was something that my senior once said, who is now a doctor. If you waste your money, it's not wasting. If you spend your money to journey, because I said before, going for postings as a medical student in my school is a journey as a 5th-year medical student. So you basically travel to the hospital for 40 to 1 hour, depending on if the traffic is crazy. That's just going. We're not talking about coming back. Just going to the hospital. So if you spend good money, your time, stress to go to the hospital and attend postings, why will you deceive yourself and not apply yourself? So basically, anytime you go or anytime I go to the hospital, I try to apply myself as much as I can. For example, in my obstetrics and gynecology unit for my senior posting, my unit was not really an active unit. It was just the nature of the unit. It was not an active unit. It was nobody's fault. So some days were active, some days were not active. When I'm in school, I hop. I am a proud hopper. I hop. What I mean by hop is there are 5 firms in obstetrics and gynecology in my school. So I was in one of these firms, and I went to 3 other firms during my posting. I hopped to these 3 other firms, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with it, because I get to learn as much as I can, because clinical postings are very subjective. Very, very subjective. What I am learning is different from what Mr. Z is learning in his units. And if you don't try to took eye in all the units or all the firms, you may be at a disadvantage or at a loss. I couldn't do this in my pediatrics because my unit was quite an active unit. So consultant 1 rounds were like very active. Either we had a patient or we were being taught. Clinic days were active, like every single time is an active time. If you're not attending clinics or ward rounds, you are clicking a patient and you're examining. So pediatrics was like very active, so I didn't have the opportunity to like hop around. I think I only did this only once. I joined a different unit only like once during pediatrics, and that was like the first week or something. But my pediatrics was very active, both my junior posting and my senior posting, so I didn't have that opportunity to hop, and I didn't have the strength to hop because we're closing by 4. How am I going to hop when we're closing by 4 p.m? Almost everybody's already done by that time, or 3 p.m. most everybody's already done by that time, so there was no opportunity to hop in pediatrics. But yeah, attending your postings and applying yourself as much as you can, telling yourself that I came here, I dressed up. For me, I'm wasting my white and black, and I'm coming here for this posting. I must make the best of these times, of this opportunity, and that is what you should do. So guys, these are the resources that helped me in medical school. Truth be told, you may not really be able to pinpoint the thing that you did exactly that made you ace the 4th MB exam, but all these things that I mentioned will play an important role in acing the exam. I hope this video is helpful to somebody, and if it is, please leave your comments down below in the comment section, and I will definitely see them and respond to them. This is the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching up to this point. If you watched to this point, you are a real MVP. See you guys in my next one. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video, leave your comments down below, and subscribe if you have not yet subscribed. And I'll see you guys in my next one. I love you guys as always. Keep being amazing. Mwah. Bye.